Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning back to the arrest of Columbia graduate and activist Mahmoud Khalil. Civil rights advocates, including my next guest, have denounced the move, saying that Khalil's arrest is an extreme attack on his First Amendment rights. Khalil remains detained at a detention center in Louisiana, but the Trump administration has still not publicly accused the activist of any crime, only saying that he engaged in, quote, pro-Hamas activity. Joining me now to talk about the issues involved here is Donna Lieberman, the executive director of the New York Civil Liberties Union. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
The general principle, I believe, tell me if I'm misstating it, is that government cannot target individuals and subject them to prosecution and other sanctions for the content of their speech, right?
That's true. That's what the First Amendment provides. You know, we're still a democracy, and everybody in the country has a right to free speech. We're all protected by the First Amendment, whether we're citizens, green card holders, or just visitors.
I know that some people say that Mr. Khalil is actually not a Hamas sympathizer, or that it's an incorrect characterization of his position. But even if he was, this would be protected speech, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's very interesting. You know, they're not claiming a single criminal activity by Mr. Khalil. And this is pure and simple retaliation for expressing political views that the Trump administration doesn't like. Last I heard, you know, that's unconstitutional.
So now, according to the Free Press, a publication, Mr. Khalil is not being charged with a crime, but apparently Secretary of State Marco Rubio is relying on a provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. I'd never heard of this law. Mm-hmm. It gives him sweeping powers to expel foreigners. The provision says that, quote, any quote, alien whose presence or activities in the United States the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States is deportable. How is this going to play out in court? Which is where I assume this is going to all end.
Well, nobody can predict how things will play out in court, but we still do have a Constitution in this country. We still do have a First Amendment, and there's no interpretation of this provision that has been made already or that could be made to justify arresting somebody, detaining him, and deporting him based on his opinions. And there's no allegation of anything that he has done that would justify that.
And by the way, and I know a lot of people in New York are familiar with all of the many flavors of immigration status, but some are not. He is a green card holder, which is slang for a legal permanent resident.
That's right.
What does that mean from a constitutional standpoint?
It means that he's protected by the First Amendment, that the government can't summarily deport him. They can't summarily revoke his status. And there are two parts of the Constitution that apply here. One is the First Amendment. The other is the Due Process Clause, better understood as the government has to treat people fairly. They have to give them process. They have done none of that. They have not followed the law. They've not followed the Constitution. They have simply tried to bully him into submission. And they're not trying just to bully him into submission. They're trying to bully academia. They're trying to bully Columbia University and send a message to every university across the country that they need to just put up for the Trump administration, toe the line. And, you know, given that this administration has done so much PR about anti-wokeness, there's a new wokeness coming out of Washington. They want everybody in the country and every academic institution to be woke. It's just woke with their political views, and the Constitution just doesn't permit it. And I have to add one thing about Mr. Khalil, which is that, you know, he's not only a green card holder, a legal permanent resident, he's married to an American citizen who is 8 months pregnant. So this whole arrest and detention is not only illegal, it's kind of cruel and inhumane.
Yeah, it is. I would urge anybody, when free speech issues come out, that the real test of it is, if it's somebody whose views you don't like, you know, do you understand that they have the right to say those things? And I think that is a prime case of that. I wanted to ask you about the other big university controversy involving this announcement from the administration that they're going to pull back $400 million in grants to Columbia, and now other universities being added to it, allegedly because the school, by not sufficiently suppressing protest, I think, is allowing a discriminatory environment towards some of the students. What are the constitutional issues at stake there?
The First Amendment, but it's also like, the federal government has made a commitment to these universities to fund certain programs. We're talking about science research, social science research, public health, education research. You can't just say, no, we don't like you anymore because you don't like us enough. It's entirely illegal. We're challenging that. And this is a thinly veiled effort to bully the universities every which way. They're using every tool in their toolbox. They're going after faculty, they're going after students, they're going after grants that have absolutely nothing to do with politics.
I don't understand why in a city that's chock full of lawyers, not just constitutional and civil liberties lawyers, but all kinds of lawyers, $400 million is enough money even for New Yorkers to fight over. It seems to me that the university should have pushed back loud and strong because there are, sort of due process issues there as well. I mean, I read through what I think are the relevant laws, and it turns out the federal government has to have a hearing. They have to find that.
Right.
If there is, look, if there's a discriminatory environment on the campus, maybe you should have your federal money revoked, but you have to prove it. You don't get to just announce it. But why is the university just kind of rolling over and not fighting back?
I understand that Columbia feels under attack, and they're being attacked from all sides. Columbia is a powerful and really important and valuable institution in New York and in the nation, as are universities generally. And instead of pandering and trying to appease the administration, they actually need to show up for their faculty, for their students, for their mission, which is education. Education does not mean rolling over and censoring people to please some master or some donor. It means fighting for the right to free expression, fighting for the notion that democracy requires free and open debate. And that means people have to be free to express themselves. Columbia will get nowhere by trying to mollify the MAGAs.
Yeah, I don't know if they understand the nature of the people they're dealing with, right? But this is definitely not the way to get out from under their thumb.
No way.
I wanted to play something for you. We're in the middle of a race for mayor. One of the candidates, who happens to be the incumbent mayor, was asked about the Mahmoud Khalil case. Let's hear what the mayor said at his press conference earlier today.
I cannot say this clear enough. And federal government deals with immigration. That's who deals with immigration. I've said it over and over again that free speech is important. And this country advocates for that. But when it comes down to the determination of the status of who stays in the country and who doesn't stay in the country, that's the federal government.
Mr. Khalil's not going to get much help from City Hall. What free speech and constitutional commitments do you want to hear from the next mayor? What should voters want to hear from the candidate?
I think that this is so disappointing. He is the mayor of a sanctuary city that stands with immigrants, that stands against the abuse of the immigration authority by the federal government. He should be talking about how New York protects its citizens, its residents, and he should be talking about the overreach and the attempt to bully New Yorkers into submission. But of course he's not. He has acted like he is beholden to the MAGA crowd for getting rid of his criminal case, or trying to, and he's not representing New York culture, who we are. We're a sanctuary city. We're a city built on immigrants. Either this generation, the last generation, or the one before has immigrants written all over it. And he should be talking about New York values. And New York values are free speech, equality. That includes immigrants.
Okay, Donna Lieberman, thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with you as usual.
Great to see you.
All right, we're going to take a break now. When we come back, I'll be joined by Social Services Commissioner Molly Wausau Park. We're going to talk about the possible cuts to SNAP benefits, that's food assistance, and other critical federal programs, and how this will all affect New Yorkers. Stay with us.